Getting older, looking back at some stops along the tracks of life I've made. Always seems so
quite a few classic songs like Wild Thing, Into the Morning, probably Try a Little Harder, Storybook Children. The list is almost endless, and your songs have been covered from Janis Joplin to Johnny Cash to Jimi Hendrix and Fats Domino, lots of others in between. But before we go to that, could you tell us a little bit about your earliest musical experience?
I'm from a neighboring town, New York City. It was Yonkers, New York. And when I was growing up, I was very into music, but there wasn't a lot of good music around. And one of the nice things was that my dad and mom knew I loved music, and they let me stay up at night listening to the radio. And sometime when I was, I guess, around 8 years old, I heard a Wheeling, West Virginia, and I heard country music for the first time. And that changed my life. So I became a country music fan. And I loved the blues records from down south, which were also you weren't able to hear in New York. But that's the kind of music that formed my writing, my songwriting, when I finally became a songwriter. It was mostly country songs.
Yes. And you had your first recording contract in the early 60s?
Yeah, as a songwriter. I was signed as an artist to King Records.
Okay.
And I made some kind of rockabilly blues records with King.
Yeah.
And that was when it was the all-black division in New York. I was the only white artist signed to the label. And I'm kind of proud to be on it. Yeah. But I didn't sell a lot of records, and I wanted to stay in the business, so I just tried to write for other people. And then all of a sudden, a couple of people heard my songs and started to record them. And one of the big influences for me was Chet Atkins, who was not only the great guitar player, but he was also the head of A&R for RCA Victor Records. And he heard one of my songs, and this is from a little New York publisher. And he wrote the guy back a note saying, and the guy called me in his office and says, I want you to hear this note I got from Chet Atkins. It says, Jerry, I'm recording that song you sent down. I have no idea who Chip Taylor is. It's very hard for me to believe he's from New York. He said, but wherever he's from, I want to hear every song he writes. And that's what did it for me. Yeah. And all of a sudden, Chet started recording a bunch of my songs, and then I was in the business making a living.
And then you're talking early 60s?
Early 60s, yeah. And then I started selling my songs around 1961, 62, and then I got a contract with a record companies where I didn't have to go to different publishers to sell. One company signed me, gave me a salary, and that was it.
Yeah.
I was in the business.
Wonderful. And somehow a song popped up in 1962, where you were still called West Voigt, which is your own name.
That was earlier.
Here I Am.
No. Here I Am. Yeah, Here I Am was under Chip Taylor.
Okay.
I had changed my name just right before that. I was under West Voigt when I was with King Records.
Okay.
I was West Voigt and the Town and Country Brothers, and then it was West Voigt and the Town 3. And then somebody said, you know, that's the name. We got to change it. The DJs are having a hard time with your last name. Well, probably a lot of nonsense, just an excuse to tell me why I wasn't getting played. But we changed it to Taylor, and a nickname I had from golf was Chip, so Chip Taylor was my new name.
Yeah.
And it stuck because I all of a sudden started having success as a writer with that name.
Yeah. So the first hit that you wrote for somebody else was Willie Nelson's He Sits on My Table?
He Sits at My Table was one of the first things I wrote, and it was almost at the same time I had some other things being recorded by the Brown family and John Loudermilk and Eddie Arnold and people like that, but Willie was one of the first ones.
Yeah. In October '74, Johnny Cash recorded Cleaning on Tables for his John Mayer Cash album, and then out of my private collection, This Side of the Big River, a tremendous cover to my taste of Johnny Cash's song Big River. Was it some kind of a return favor, or did you always like that kind of music?
No, well, I think I always loved Johnny's music, and it was a big thrill for me when Big River came first. When I recorded it and he heard it, and he sent me this note saying how much he liked my version. And then the record company said, well, will you send that same note to the DJs? You know?
Yeah, please.
And he did. He sent a nice note. And so that was it. So that I met him then, and that was a nice relationship. I don't remember exactly when he did Clean Your Own Tables. Do you know when it was? I'm not sure.
It was recorded in October 74.
74? Clean Your Own Tables was?
According to the Johnny Cash District record.
Yeah.
For the John R. Cash
So it was
album
about
of
the same.
75.
It was about the same time.
Yeah. So I was thinking that maybe it was a...
You know, it's a good question, Rob. I don't think it was. I think it was just happened to be.
And then staying with Johnny a little longer, your brother John, the famous movie actor, did the Johnny Cash tribute show as the host.
As a host, yeah.
Watching it, to me, it was no coincidence at all. I don't know your brother, but is he into Johnny Cash too?
Well, he was only, I think, into it because of me being in the bit, loving him, and then John, my brother, starting to listen to what I liked, and just being a good guy. He's a good guy for any of those kind of folks to be around because he's a regular guy, John, my brother John.
Yeah. Because I saw an old picture on the website out of the 50s, some website, not your own, where you're playing with him. There's two guitars on stage.
I don't think he wasn't playing guitar. He was on stage with me. What John the first song I ever wrote was a song called Faded Blue. And that's in later years I totally forgot about the song because I never recorded it. But that was the song I got my deal with King Records on, but somehow we never recorded that finally. But John always liked that song, so every once in a while he would remind me, why don't you sing this first song you ever wrote? And he was at my show. I said, you're going to be at the show tonight, why don't you get on stage with me and sing it with me? Okay. And so so every so often when he's around, he gets on stage and sings that song with me.
Okay. And then the magazine Rolling Stone named your record, Chip Taylor's Last Chance, one of the best albums of 1973, specifically. How did that work out for you?
Well, you see, when I was signed to Warner Brothers, they signed me because they heard my Gasoline album. And Mary Martin, a wonderful A&R person that's signed Leonard Cohen and worked with Van Morrison, she's the one that signed me. She was working for Warner Brothers. And I didn't tell her what I was going to record. Gasoline had a little blues and rock and pop stuff in it. And I guess she thought I was going to make one of those kind of records, but I didn't. I went up to Boston, didn't tell anybody what I was doing, and made Last Chance. And so when I played it for the Warner Brothers people, they all sat around in a meeting, and they listened to the entire album, and then one of the guys said, Chip, I think I can speak for everybody. That's a wonderful album, but that's a country album, and we don't have a country division at Warner Brothers. So when you ask about it, it was a wonderful period of time. It got wonderful reviews. There were a couple of areas that were playing this kind of music, and one was Austin, Texas, and one was in the San Francisco area in Santa Cruz. Those areas, Last Chance became a heroic album, and The Real Thing became the theme song for one of the greatest radio stations of all time, KFAT, out of Santa Cruz. And so I'm very proud of all those things, but they were trying to scurry and get Warner Brothers was trying to put together a country division. And Last Chance didn't share in that kind of thing. So it was kind of a cult album, and the review in Rolling Stone was wonderful.
I personally think it's a very wonderful album. Then this one became a hit in our little country.
That's a long story because how that became a hit here and my relationship with the Dutch people. It's a very beautiful story. One of the things we haven't talked about is that one of the other things that I was very much into was gambling. So this has to do with the story. at the time of Last Chance, I didn't want to do too much touring because I wanted to be by the racetracks and the casinos around the New York area. And I got a call from the Warner Brothers representative saying to me, would you come on over here because you're selling a few more records than we would expect you to. You want to come over and see why.
Yeah.
And so I said, it was the question, I wouldn't tour in the States because I wanted to be around the racetracks, but this was too interesting. I said, yeah, okay, I'll come over, Peter, and he set up a little show for me to play and then released the single, and that's, it's a long story, but it was a beautiful story, and I loved doing it. I came over here to play the sold out houses, and it was a wonderful period of time.
Do you still do it on your...
I've been doing it on this tour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love to do it tonight.
Well, good.
And I assume basic song list is more or less the same on your nightly shows, or do you shuffle a lot?
You mean the shows?
You have a kind of frame of songs that you always play, and then
I don't have to. I kind of go with the feeling. What I do is I have kind of almost a set list for the first part of the show.
Yeah.
It's basically what we've been talking about. My show in the States is called The Yonker Story for theaters. Yeah. And so my show is based on growing up and where I went. And in the middle of that, I play a couple of new songs, but it mostly stays with the story for the first part of the show. And then on the second half of the show, because the show is divided into two sets.
Yeah.
And the second half of the set, I start out with some planned things, and then I throw it open to the audience to see if they want to hear certain things. And sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't, but I do the best I can.
Yeah, of course. I once read, to me, a kind of perfectly fitting quote on the album Hitman, where the writer of the liner notes said, "Wow thing, imagine that somebody really wrote that." That about sums it up, because it's so stuck in the collective memory.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing to me too.
What's your connection to the song now?
Well,
looking back.
Yeah, I remember exactly how I wrote it and when I wrote it and why I wrote it. I was basically a country writer.
Yeah,
and I just
it kind of sticks out in the rest of the material.
I just started, all my success was country until 1965. I started to write some rock and roll songs. And I was getting a little reputation in town, but nothing was really, I didn't have any hits. And then a producer called me up and said, he was a writer too, a good one, Jerry Branningham. And he said, "Chuck, I have a group I'm recording tomorrow. And I heard you writing some really interesting rock and roll songs, and I could use one more song. Do you have anything?" And I was so flattered that he called me, because he was a good writer. I never met him. And I said, "Geez, Jerry, thanks for calling. I'll try to write something today. Instead of sending you over something I have, let me try to write something today." And I wrote Wild Thing that afternoon. I had a country demo scheduled, and I had not finished Wild Thing. There's not much to it, but
no.
I went to the studio, and instead of doing the country demo, I decided to do Wild Thing so I wouldn't forget it. And I asked the engineer to let the tape roll and turn the lights out, because I wanted to get lost in the feeling of it, I didn't want somebody, because I'm kind of shy, and I probably would have been afraid to sing a sexy song in front of somebody looking at me, so I had them turn the lights off, and I just had some things planned, and then sang whatever, finished it the way, just from feelings, and that became almost the exact framework that the Trogs record was that demo. And so the fellow that asked for the song, he did record it with the band, but he turned it into a little blues record, which was not exactly the feel that I had. And the Trogs did it exactly that way, and Jimi Hendrix did it exactly that way.
So one couple,
So it was just, just a blessing I got the phone call.
Yeah, and amazing because I found a list on the internet of all the covers of Wild Thing. It just goes on and on.
Yeah, yeah. It just keeps going on.
Yeah. Let's get to the song writing. How do you usually shape your songs? Is it a frame or a phrase?
This would be usually what I do. I am a stream of consciousness writer. I don't think about what I'm going to write about before I write the song. That would be like 99% of the time I don't. Once in a while I do. But most times I just have a guitar sitting close to me. And I wake up in the morning and I do some things and I'm fooling and I pick up the guitar whenever I feel like it and I just start to strum chords and I sing nonsense things to myself. I may sing something I wrote yesterday or to myself, but at some point I'm letting the current spirit come out of me. And I don't frame it. When something all of a sudden comes out of me, and it may make sense and it may make no sense. It may be just sounds, but when something comes out of me that gives me a physical chill, you know, I go like that. What is that? And I quickly, I have my iPhone there. Before I used to have a tape recorder, and I click on the you know, the thing you can record things, and I click on it and I just sing into it and just try to capture that spirit and let myself go loose again and not think of anything and see what comes out. And some songs I've written like that at one sitting, where I just, the spirit of it came out, and it just, you know, just went. And like a song like Angel of the Morning. Angel of the Morning, I wrote exactly that way. I was fooling around with the feeling for about a half hour and nothing was coming out. Then all of a sudden, the lines, with the melody, there'll be no strings to bind your hands, if my love can't find you. I didn't know what that meant, but all I knew, my body was on fire, and it felt so beautiful to me. And I wrote it down really quick, because back in those days I didn't have the mini tape recorder. I wrote it down, and then I sang it over again to myself. And then I kept going, and it just wrote itself. There was only a little part of that song that was crafted. It was in the second section, but the first part just came flying out.
You hear that a lot, and that songs, the best songs simply come to people.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that there's not some crafting in it, but it's very late in the game. I feel the song as being very powerful way before I craft. I don't want to be smart and say, oh, that's a nice lyric. No, I don't care about nice lyric. I want to feel a chill. Then if I feel a chill, I write it down. I just want that chill again. That's all. I don't care about being smart or anything like that. So.
Is there some truth in it then that I once read a quote by, I think it was John Fogerty, who said, there are so many songs out there waiting to be tapped.
Look, I think, I wouldn't say it that way. That's John's thought. My thoughts would be is that there's emotion floating around every place. There's emotion floating in this room right now. You know, and just have to capture it. And whatever you're feeling, if you're human and you feel things a lot, which I do, I connect with those things and they're important to me. And there's nothing that's not important. So any little thing to me is nice to me. It can become very powerful, and then so there's everything out there to be tapped into if you're open to feeling things.
Do you have a personal kind of status for your song? Like you say, this is a good one, this is not a good one?
That's a pretty good question. I don't know that I do that. You know, I would say that anything that, if I don't think they're any good, because sometimes you fool yourself, you think something's good, and then you come back to it and say, I don't want to continue with that. There's nothing there that does anything to me. I thought it did, but it doesn't. And so if I continue with it, it means something to me. It might not be very powerful for the masses, it may not be a hit, but it means something to me. It means something to me. Like I got a request the other day in the show for a song called The Ghost of Phil Sinclair. And it's a very important song to me. It was about a guy I knew that was dying, who I met in Belfast when he was dying. And he was a big chip tail. And I went to see him in the hospital just before he died, before my show. Somebody told me about him, so I didn't do sound check. I went to see him. I wrote this song and I had Lucinda Williams sing it with me. And it's a very important song. So somebody asked me for that song the other day. I was so blessed that the person asked me. And I know that song's not a hit, but it's important to me.
So yeah, the other way of putting it could be what makes a good song a good song. And, I once read, I think it was Ray Wiley Hubbard, who said, ask yourself as a writer if you should sing it for the next 25 years. Is that a standard?
That's a good thing Ray said that. He's my friend. That sounds good. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, back in the early days, I certainly wanted to have hits. You know, and I was proud to have them.
Yeah.
So it might have been a little bit different mindset, the way I was going at it. But I can't really tell you I know. I don't plan it differently now. It's just now the framework of my songs now is probably more folk or folkish or something like that. I'm not like in that, I don't really know why, it just is a little different now. So I don't expect a lot of the songs I'm writing now to be recorded by anybody else and become a hit. If it happens once in a while, that's great.
So you have the second longest list of #1 hits, ranging from 1966 to 2001.
Right.
Which 2001 was Shaggy's version of Angel of the Morning.
Yeah, #1. So I'd like to have another #1 so I can jump ahead of that even.
But you are the second in the world with the longest range of #1. It's kind of something. Are most of your songs personal?
Yeah, I'd say they're all personal. You know.
Some personal experience.
Yeah, well, because I'm letting a stream of consciousness thing go, and usually what comes out is something that I felt from something that happened to me or something that moved me. You know, and, so I'd say that they're. You know, when I wrote Angel of the Morning, it was certainly personal feelings. I wouldn't say I think of them as total personal, but it's personal emotion. I don't feel it any way that you want me or any of those things. They're all, some of them are more directly. I can think exactly what that's for that girl. I've written a lot of feelings that I know come from my love for somebody. You know, but they're all personal in some way. I'm never writing. You know, like a typical songwriter's thing in Nashville would be a couple of people get in the room and one says, "You got any ideas? What do you want to write about today? You got a story?"
And then they start.
And then they start. Do you have a title?
Yeah.
You know? And so it's very impersonal kind of writing. I don't write impersonally. No. My songs may sound like they make not too much sense, and that's okay. Like maybe like John Prine writes the same way. If it feels good to me, I just let it go. But
there's got to be something in those songs. Seeing facts like you are the second one in the world with this long range of #1 hits and this endless list of artists that have done versions of your songs. So there must be something in it that's wider spread.
Well, that's why I always feel like if you write a song from a true emotion, and a lot of my songs that I wrote were from true emotion, and they were framed like commercial kind of songs. They sounded a little bit. So I always felt like if you wrote a song that was honest, from true emotion, and you sang it in whatever language you sang, in an honest way, that anybody who didn't understand that language would still feel the power of your song. I felt
that's my personal feeling too.
Yeah.
One song in particular that we air tonight as well is Early Sunday Morning, with the wonderful line, "It's early Sunday morning and I'm ripping up this note I wrote to you."
Yeah.
I find that poetry.
Yeah.
Do you want to share that story?
Sure. Yeah, it was.
Is it a true story?
Yeah, I was breaking up with my wife at the time, and I felt a real tug. I had another girlfriend, going someplace, but I still felt that love that I had for her, you know, and I just ripped it up, and it was true thing, you know.
And on I think it's the same album, there's a song called Funny Songs, You don't write funny songs.
I don't feel like writing
anymore.
funny songs anymore.
Did you write any? Because
I've written some funny songs. I mean, just songs that kind of make me laugh, like in the Last Chance song, and the 101 in Cash Box, and
somebody should have me.
yeah. Some of these things are kind of fun,
But is there a reason for the, in general, more serious type of songs?
I just feel that way mostly. You know, it's Rob. When I was growing up, when I first heard country music, the thing that I attached to the country music that meant everything to me was the sadness. I didn't want to hear the clever songs. I didn't want to hear anything funny.
No.
You know, if you gave me a choice of listening to Hank Williams or Luke the Drifter, I wanted to hear Luke the Drifter. It was the sad stuff.
Yeah, that's your point. Yeah.
You know, so, and I think that's a lot of people, even kids, feel that way. People don't know it. People always get in front of kids and they try to be silly and all that kind of stuff. That's okay.
The wrong way of funny, actually.
But if you're with a kid and you're just listening to them and you talk on their level, you get something that's a lot more serious than what you expect. And if you're truthful with kids, you get a lot of beautiful things back.
I think so. Talking about kids, there's a young girl's voice in Nothing Like Your Girl.
Yeah.
It's your own daughter.
Yeah, right.
Was that a kind of fashion around those days? Because it struck to me that in a short frame of years you had Dottie West with her Mommy Can I Still Call Him Daddy. You had Bobby Bear with his children singing in the kitchen kind of stuff.
I didn't know that.
But it's a short period of time that you didn't hear before.
Really?
Children coming into records. And then it's suddenly stopped. It's all
well, maybe because some of the people who are getting successful all of a sudden were having kids that they love a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, I love thinking about that song and having her come in and sing on it, and now all these years later, she was like 6 then or something when I wrote that song for her, and now she's a grown woman and she has 3 children, and I sing with the grandchildren. We have an album out, and every once in a while we do shows, and that's about as fun as it gets for me.
Super. Your stop in music from the 80s to the early 90s, how did that happen?
Well, we were just talking about that today in the car. There's a song on Saint Sebastian. I'll tell you, first of all, basically, all these recordings that you have here that I made, I was making them from New York. I needed Nashville's support because they were country. And Nashville had their own way of doing things. They didn't particularly like it that a New Yorker was coming in, signing to the powerful big record company, and then the big record company would say, the parent company would say to Nashville, okay, promote this. They didn't want that. They wanted people that were coming down to Nashville, signing down there, recording with the musicians down there, writing kind of cookie-cutter songs that could fit the mold of things, and I was breaking the mold.
Assembly line music.
Yeah, I wasn't doing that.
No.
And then we were asking them to promote my music. So at one point I was on Columbia Records and they didn't promote me. And I recorded this, on the one album, Somebody Should Have the Jukebox. They didn't promote any single. And so I said to the head of the label in New York, I said, why am I staying here? They won't promote. I said, I've got this one new song I recorded, One Night Out with the Boys. I said, I like this song. It sounds like it could be a hit. And I know some people at Capitol Records think it could be a hit. I said, why don't you send it down to Nashville? If they'll support it, I'll stay in Columbia. If not, let me go. So basically, I'd gone to Capitol, and Capitol had flown in the head promotion, the assistant to the head of promotion there, to convince me to stay on go to Capitol, that they would promote the singer. This is a long story. So then what happened was, is when the single came out, it started to break, and it was going to be my first big hit on Capitol Records, One Night Out with the Boys. Yeah. #1 in Chicago, #1 in Atlanta, #1 request in 2 weeks. It was going to be huge. Then the head of promotion of Capitol, who didn't make the promise, his assistant made the promise. He saw this happening and he got angry. He said, Chip is not signed, he didn't sign through me down here. He didn't do it the way, I'm gonna stop the record. So he stopped the record.
You're kidding.
Stopped it. He called up, I got a phone call from one DJ, he said, I don't believe what just happened, Chip. Capitol promotion guy called me and said, your record is now not a priority. They want us to stop playing it. When that happened, you know, I was gambling a lot at the time anyway, and I said, I really don't need this. You know, he stopped the record, and the people that made the promise to me apologized and said, we'll do anything for you. I said, no, it's just too hard. You know? Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to play that game. No. I've given you what I thought was my best, and if I can't get support, maybe I better just stop for a while. So I stopped, and I went to gambling full time. And I loved gambling. I was a very good horse race handicapper. I learned from a master. I became very good at it, and I teamed up with the biggest money maker of all time, another wonderful family man, a scientist kind of guy, and we put our heads together and had wonderful days gambling, playing horses. Very profitable, but it still wasn't the same as making music.
No, I think so.
But so finally, in 1995, my mother got ill, and I started to play music for her. I hadn't played in a long time. I started to play for her, and all of a sudden I wrote a song for her. And after about 2 weeks, I called my gambling partner. I said, "You're not going to believe this, Ernie, but I am totally stopping gambling because I cannot play for people if I'm still trying to do both. No. And I want to now play for people. I want to get the feeling I had when I went to Holland, and I had to hit the same old story, and I played for family people like my mom. So I said, I want to do that. So that's what I did. I just stopped.
Yeah, and the first album, correct me if I'm wrong, but the first album again was the Hitman album, 1996?
It was released, it was 2 albums released at the same time, Hitman and the Living Room Tapes.
Yes.
The Living Room Tapes was, yeah, because somebody said you ought to do an album of your hits. So I said, okay, but that's not really what I want to do. I don't want to just do an album of my, so I did this little acoustic album with John Scholl and David Mansfield, just my guitar and their guitar, and recorded what I think was a nice little bunch of new songs, and I was back.
Yeah, and the Hitman album was more kind of a re-recorded.
Just to show what I've done
in your home studio, because there's very minimum listing of musicians.
Yeah,
it's
was recorded in my little studio in Mamaroneck in New York, just a small little studio about the size of this room right here.
Still a great version of Wild Thing.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
It's wonderful, it's wonderful. Getting to your later career, I personally love the work with Carrie.
Me too.
It's beautiful. My favorite is the first, but they're all good, but this one pops out. Is that because it's the first?
Well, the thing with Carrie that was wonderful, first of all, she's great. And I was so blessed to meet her, and I was crazy about her. And the thing is that I hired her, I saw her play in fiddle at a little record store in Austin, Texas. At that point, I was just thinking about I was always playing with John Platani, a guitar player that played with Van Morrison all these years. Well, John's my best friend, and he and I are playing at the show tonight in town. And I was thinking about having another musician, and I was looking to see if it could be a fiddle player. And so I went to see Carrie play. Thought she was great. Asked her to join me on the next day if she wanted to. She did. I said, "Do you sing, Carrie?" She said, "No." I said, "Not at all." She said, "I've never sung in my life. I sing terribly." I said, "Well, look, I'm going to put a microphone in front of you. If I sing choruses, started to sing a little bit. And she started to sing a little more, and then we came to Holland. And she was, when I was promoting the Black and Blue America album, and I finally said to her, I said, Carrie, on Thursday, you're going to sing a song with me, a duet with me. And she said, no, I'm not doing this. I said, oh. So I taught her Storybook Children, and we played that. She was real shy, and when she came to that microphone and opened her mouth, this was after the first set, it was in the second set, the audience went crazy. Without even, when she just started the song, we had to stop it and start again. And then I convinced her to do it, so I wrote a bunch of songs for us to do.
Yeah, because it comes from the heart, it's obvious.
Yeah.
It's obvious. How was your tour through the Netherlands so far?
Oh, it's been great. It's just been wonderful. It's been a lot of sold-out shows and wonderful. I love playing for the Dutch folks. I mean, they remind me of my hometown in Yonkers. You know, just.
Is there still some kind of link? Because the Dutch used to be in the New York area.
I don't know.
A lot of countries.
Maybe I don't know.
Maybe kind of basic mentality.
It's just family people, you know. It's
yeah,
just
family.
family.
That's what I mean.
And it's not like when you play in this. When I play other places in the States, it's not that it's not good, because all of it's good. But this is more like playing for my family, more like playing for Yonkers people.
Yeah.
And I like it. And when I throw it open for requests, it's amazing to me what they choose. They choose the things I love the best. They wouldn't, in the States, they wouldn't do that.
No.
But they asked, I told you, they asked me for Phil Sinclair, the ghost of Phil Sinclair. They asked me for this ship, American Hero. They asked me for Black and Blue America.
Yeah.
They asked me for all the stuff that touches me most. And a young couple the other day asked me for one of the most emotional songs on my new album. Is a song for a fellow that I love very much that passed away. And it's a tough song to hear. They asked for that song, and they did it. So we connect, the audience is here, and I.
Yeah. Then they are really your audience.
Yeah. That's a nice thing.
Yeah. And what do you like most about the Dutch? Is that the mentality or more specific?
I like people in general, Rob. You know, if you put me any place, if I found some genuine person, I'm gonna like it.
Yeah.
Whether it's a cleaning lady or a bartender or whatever, I'm gonna enjoy myself. But the Dutch people are very easy for me to enjoy. There's a lot of nice feelings floating around every town I go. So it's very comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And it's a good memory from when Same Old Story happened, you know.
Yeah.
I feel that this is the country where I was the biggest star that I ever was. I never had a #1 hit anyplace else. You know? I come here and I sing about my father being a golf pro in New York. And
that's a beautiful song.
And it goes to #1. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I personally like the last line in that song. That kind of hits. The closing line, goddamn the ones that keep this world insane. Yeah. Do you tour a lot lately?
Yeah, I've been making records every year, 1 record a year at least, and usually go on the road and tour with that record. I've been spending an awful lot of time in Norway and Sweden because I was in Norway at the time of the tragedy. In Sweden, I broke with Black and Blue America. I became kind of a college known, it was a big record over there. And then in Norway, a couple of years ago, I was there when the Utoya tragedy happened. The kids were all killed. And I wrote a song for them, and I started playing in churches around, and so I got to be kind of known over there.
Yeah.
And then one of their famous singers recorded an album of all my songs, and it was up for a Grammy last year, and I went on tour with him.
Okay.
So.
And they translated it into the local language?
No, he sang it in English.
English, yeah.
But he was a known singer, so that was good. So so that's another area now that I tour a lot. I do a lot of prison shows in Sweden. I like doing that. And so I've been touring the States and Norway and Sweden and here in Northern Ireland. I have a fairly big fan base there.
So there's a good chance that we will see you again here.
We're talking about it now, about maybe coming back with the big band, which I haven't toured with a big band in a while.
Yeah, and, that might be good.
And you know, with pedal steel and stuff like that, and do it like the Last Chance days, you know.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, so we might do that.
Okay, so you didn't get time to see the theater yet, huh, since you just checked in.
No, I played there before, the same theater, so I don't remember.
It's a beautiful old, very good acoustic. But we will see that tonight. One last question that I'd like to ask you is a quote I read in another interview about David Olney calling you a little bit crazy since mostly girls cover your songs.
I like being, well, no, I think David was saying, David's a great guy and I love being with him. But he said to me one night, he said, Jesus Christ, he says, how the hell do you do that? You write from a woman's point of view, and it's so real. I said, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I do it. But I do feel like it's real. I feel like I don't know whether it's something that I feel that I love people so much that I try to be where they are, you know, sometimes, and that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's my feminine side or something. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
May I thank you from the bottom of my heart for this very open interview.
It's great, Rob. Great to be with you.
Wild things shake happen. It'll make my heart sing. It'll make everything groove. Come on, wild thing. Rip it up, John Britannia. And I dream about you and I can't without you, honey. Let's take something old and make it new. And it's early Sunday morning and I'm ripping up this note I wrote to you. And I am wishing I was younger, getting old.